Okay, yeah. So my name is Xander Heemskerk, and I'm not a DevOps or an Agile salesperson within the company, right? I'm not driving Agile or sales or Agile or DevOps type of initiatives in the company. I'm a product security officer, director of product security, indeed senior, like Gene said. And this is the highest waterfall in the Netherlands. Quite I had to Google it, of course, quite a flat country. It's somewhere in the area of Apeldoorn. But still, some elevation there. So, and the company I work for, Philips, Royal Philips, is a company, yeah, that needs a form of, well, is built up on waterfall type of development of solutions. And therefore needs also to still to enforce that, to be able to create products which comply with all kinds of regulations. So I'll tell you something about, or I'll talk about the Philips context, digital transformation in healthcare, yes, healthcare, Philips solution creation, so how do Philips solutions, how are they created? Excuse me, wrong button. The regulatory context, so it's a very contextual presentation, because it's also the adversary and the hacker context. And I have here the attempts, because when Gene sent around an email and said, well, if you want to present here, and you're not sure if you want to present, just send it up and we'll see if it works. And it doesn't have to be a success story. So I thought, well, actually, I'm not sure if I want to present, but I do want to go finally to this conference. And I also don't think it's a success story. It's also not a total disaster story. It's, I think, where many of the companies are somewhere in the middle, muddling in the mud. But we have agile approaches to making waterfall a bit more flexible than it actually is perceived or is. And then what do you need for agile security? And then also they were asking, well, what are your open issues? What do you still want to have addressed? So I have sort of like a wish list at the end. But maybe it's too much reaching for the moon. So, and then who am I? Well, so I am Xander Heemskerk. I'm the Director of Product Security with Personnel. You can see on the website, etc., all the details of a lengthy career. It's more than 30 years in IT, and I do have to do a little bit of a personal thing. So when I started out in IT, started working for a company 37 years ago. It was for a Japanese corporation, Ricoh, over in Amstelveen, close by. And the boss, Sato-san, he took me for a lunch in Okura. So I had my first bento box, my first bento box ever in 1986. Indeed, Japanese corporation were the example for everybody in the world. Like yesterday was explained, they were all in awe, but a bento box I'd never had before. Now I've had many. But he took it in the downstairs here, hugely expensive for at the time, I thought, as a young kid. But yes, so that was 30 years ago, and then grew up through all the cycles. A Japanese corporation, everybody does everything, right? So did operations, well, even the boss did operations, Sato-san. But after Ricoh, I worked for many other companies and did, I guess, sort of everything in IT, from operations to education to solution architecture to programming to et cetera, et cetera. Not DevOps, because it didn't exist 20 years ago, but similar things you did. Well, actually, the Japanese corporation had similar things like DevOps, because you did everything, both putting on the tapes in the mainframe as well as programming the mainframe or programming the PC. Anyway, then through those years, I grew up through architecture, solution architecture, into IT security. Cyber security would be the modern name. And did all around the career also all kinds of advanced development, and went through all the flavors of what it was what was the silver bullet, or announced as the silver bullet at the time. So you had all kinds of developments, do it right the first time, I can remember, and extreme programming, and DSDM, and whatever, feature-driven, well, the whole thing. And they were always announced as a silver bullet, and then after a while, including Agile and including DevOps, always announced as the silver bullet, and then over time, realization came that maybe you shouldn't be too religious about and too fundamentalistic about all those methodologies. So common sense still played a role, so therefore I can still play a role. Well, that's what I think. Anyway, the role in Philips is product security. That's building in security in the products and services we deliver to our customers. And what I do is I govern that businesses, business units who create solutions, that they indeed implement the appropriate level of security. Appropriate level should mean definitely not too little, but also not over-engineer and do too much. So it's not about driving agility, I mentioned that before. It is a little bit like the police officer, the local Dutch sheriff, this would be from 40 years ago. Perceived at least by the businesses, but I try not to be like that. Again, just to make sure, if there's anything said and it's not in line with what corporate communication wants, so this is all my vision and not so much the companies or all the companies I worked for before. Then Philips. So yesterday was the birthday of Philips. They are yesterday, 15th of May, 150 years old. This was the moment. They signed the contract, and it's one of the real Dutch conglomerates. Many companies, huge companies. Most important tech company in Europe, ASML, comes out of Philips. But NXP, etc. Now, it's also an old company could be seen as set in its ways, but it's also been very agile in changing its business models. Because if in the 70s and the 80s you would go on television and you would work for Philips, you would always say, well, I work for this company which create light bulbs from Eindhoven, and everybody would know it with Philips because they wouldn't be allowed to mention the name. Now they don't, Philips, the Royal Philips, the Philips I work for, the one and only Philips, doesn't create any lighting products anymore. Nor you will know Philips of the television. They don't create televisions anymore. We don't create washing machines anymore. We don't create coffee machines anymore, or chips, or indeed the chips machines from ASML. That's all produced by other companies, but they still have the logo of Philips, so you will still recognize it. So they reinvented themselves as more or less a medical company. One of the business of part of this huge conglomerate is now really focused only on medical solutions. And so that's from indeed big iron MRI scanners and image-guided therapy, as well as, and that's the area where I govern product security, that's the wellness and or some softer medical type of solutions. For some of the Dutch people, known as former consumer lifestyle, which is solutions where wellness solutions like shavers, but then connected shavers, connected toothbrushes, apps for pregnancy apps, milk bottle measuring, and then all, because it's only interesting when it's, for me, interesting when it's connected, so it's all a type of connected solutions. And the size, 80,000 people, etc. So it's a huge company still. It used to be bigger, right? So 30 years ago, 400,000. But it reinvented itself as a smaller and leaner type of company. Medical solutions, you have what we call a digital transformation or a digital revolution. That's increasing complexity. Solutions consist of loads of interoperability. So there's IoT, right? Connected shaver, connected toothbrush, connected everything, connected MRI scanner more for maintenance than for direct. And it's connected to an app through Bluetooth, and then from the app to a backend in the cloud. In the cloud, there's going to be data collection, and there's going to be AI type of analysis. For the baby cameras, there is the analysis of the sound cry analysis. So in line with the presentation from Patrick. And analyzing if the baby cries, if the baby is hungry, or if the baby needs to have a diaper change, type of things. Also all kinds of, and that's actually a meshed cloud solution, sub-solution, so the app connects to all kinds of things in the cloud. Then there are all kinds of different collaborations, business to consumer, business to business to business to consumer, business to government. and a hugely complex supply chain. Open source, of course, commercial off the shelf, but also all kinds of OEMs, ODMs, finished goods suppliers. Any fashionable way of creating products is also a part of the ways Philips creates solutions. Because we are a medical device company, we are also in a highly regulated environment, and that means from the FDA, but also the CFDA, which is the Chinese FDA, because we're also big in the Chinese market, as well as EU MDR, the EU Medical Device Regulation. You have to have a QMS, a quality management system. Well, like I said, I'm in IT for 37 years, and I joined Philips 7 years ago. This was the first time ever I experienced a quality management system, and it actually, although there were systems to manage quality in all those other companies, obviously, but here it's really written down in details what a process needs to look like and who needs to do what at which moment, etc., etc. And that will be audited, or can be audited, by the FDA. The FDA will come up and say, what do you got in your QMS? And show me that you've actually done that. And what we have here is what all companies in medical space have, or should have, for the FDA, and most of them do deliver on the Chinese, on the US market, is a V model, right? So it's a halfway, it's like a waterfall going both down and up. But it says here, well, you got to get your requirements, and then later we check if they are implemented, etc., etc. So not really, doesn't really have the feel of Agile. And what it does describe is indeed definitions of what the process must look like. So formal specifications of security, other requirements as well as security, quality requirements, the whole thing. It must be validated at the end, and the FDA can come and audit your QMS against what you actually have in place. You have a design history file, and you need to describe, which is actually quite good, the full product life cycle. Pre-market, that's quite, these are FDA terms, right? Pre-market is quite easy, before whatever you do before you create the product. But post-market is also how are you going to manage the product throughout the life cycle? Do you have the people ready to be able to, well, security-wise, create patches, analyze vulnerabilities, etc., etc., which are, if you are moving, and then the businesses are moving to indeed also agile way of working, well, those people need to be agile in addressing those aspects then. And if you're talking about agile and short cycles, yeah, that's for hardware, so for IoT and finished goods suppliers, that's a little bit complex because they do need to know what how the plastic is going to be molded at the beginning, and that does trickle down through the whole development. Then we create across the globe, right? This is the Zimmer Tower in Lier, Belgium, with the different clocks. Also interesting to visit. The Wonder Clock with the clock where you can also see the time on Mars. But anyway, that's a separate story. This is on the outside. But it's globally distributed development. Everybody in his own time zone. It's optimized for cost, obviously, because you'll have the IoT comes from China, the software from Bangalore or Pune. It's designed often in the US or the Netherlands, Eindhoven. But there are also all kinds of developments in Israel, etc., etc. So they're all in their own time zone, so it's very hard to get them all in a room together. It's also very hard to share a pizza with them if we want to do some selling. Plus, not in all those geographies they like pizza, actually. India doesn't always like pizza. China, they think it's just some snack for in between, but not really a meal. So that does complex the whole development and getting together and building up the relationships necessary for an agile way on creating products or actually governing product security. So indeed, a question not put at the end, well, Conway's law for agility, how we are organized, is how we create products. Yeah, and then what you have coming out of Agile is indeed, well, they want to be, because that's when the Agile development team is religious, they say, well, we want to be self-developing, self-controlled, because we go faster and we don't want to be bothered with you. Yeah, what you can not have, or what makes it very complex is that you also have self-approving teams, because you will quickly get the developer bias, I would like to call it, that, and I've been a developer also for 20 years. Yeah, you don't see the flaws in your own code. It cannot be good. It worked at my station, so why does it fail there? And actually the idea that some hacker could break it, that's too difficult for them, or not something they think about in general. I'm obviously generalizing, but yes, that is a hugely complex aspect. Therefore, and this is from a commercial from the 80s where this supplier of something to clean your toilet with, they had a clever way to have a doctor, a person with a white coat, explaining that they did some investigation, and the product was called WC duck, right? Water closet duck. That if they said, well, we did an investigation, checked the different type of ducks, and we from WC duck definitely advise to use WC duck, which is what a developer would also say, well, no, my code is okay, that cannot be a problem. Therefore, you do need some outside governance. You do need a person outside of the team who says, well, if we do some threat modeling and look at this, I think this and this and this can go wrong. And we do need to have some testing from somebody outside of the team to be able to explain to them, well, it's not just happy flow. There are also unhappy flows possible if you put it out in the wild in the internet. In that world, we also have increasing regulatory obligations. The product teams already need to comply with so many things, but then we also get those extra laws, because what you can see is the regulator, and actually governments have seen, so we have this movement for a while, right, all the liberalization, where they leave it to the market, or the market will organize it. Well, it's recognized now, both by the EU, but also Joe Biden in his new national cybersecurity strategy has realized, no, if we leave it to the market do whatever they want, which is actually similar to my equivalent for leave it to the development teams, then they do what they want and approve their own stuff. If you leave it to companies, then they will not follow the regulations, only do exactly what's necessary, and technically could see what they get away with. So the regulator recognized that, and if you see the equivalent with GDPR, that's been a huge improvement by putting in the fines and really checking things. Well, that you will see across the board of security. Really of cybersecurity laws. Checking things and making sure. So you get ship hold monitoring. So if a product has exploitable vulnerabilities, you're not allowed to put it in the market anymore. This is upcoming regulation, not in place yet. But that's going to be a huge impact if that's really, because we're still with the market working on fine-tuning those kind of regulations. But that would be, well, but zero vulnerabilities, that would be almost impossible to release, or zero exploitable vulnerabilities. And that's the caveat. But then in the market also and in newspapers that mixes exploitable and vulnerabilities, quickly it already becomes actually an incident, while it's actually just a vulnerability. But anyway, those type of discussions make it stronger, including the software bill of material, also from Joe Biden, right? If you want to sell to the US government, you need to explain everything you have in your product, which is sounds from a developer point of view or an engineer point of view logical. You know what you have in your product. But modern development is a lot of downloading from all kinds of websites, put it in there, see if it works. And then later on, they are asked what is in there, and they haven't all registered this. So this also has a huge impact. The SBOM, right? Software bill of material. Also, this is to the US government. The biggest actually customer of Philips is the US government. That's the DoD, the Department of Defense. The second biggest customer is the VA, the Veterans Association. So if you want to deliver something to the federal US government, you have to fully explain, including down the whole supply chain, what you have in your product. That means rigorously checking and governing how you build your solutions. Which also means, including, well, as a regulator wants to see the evidence that you're indeed following secure software development life cycles, that you are, as FDA is also focusing on threat modeling and the evidence of threat modeling. So really looking at your architecture, but also looking at your company structure and see what can go wrong and then how to address that and make those your requirements. Including steps like in the SDLC, static code analysis, security testing, risk management, and all of those need evidence. So you need to, well, communicate with the regulator. How you communicate with the regulators is by creating documentation. And that's seen by Agile, well, teams as a burden, as an impediment of fast delivery, which also business leaders and developers want. So the regular, and the consequences are, well, yes, ship holding, monitoring zero vulnerabilities will make it reduce your risk management negotiating powers. So risk management is for me the way to still have teams develop things while there are vulnerabilities, because you'll say, okay, these type of risks, well, they are acceptable, they are within our risk tolerance, risk appetite, but these things are above, but if you still want to release, or you still want to go on, well, then some higher up in the food chain, so not you, not the project manager, not your boss, but the boss of your boss, if he says, well, these are acceptable risks, then we can go forward, acceptable from a business point of view. Yeah, that is, by ship holding for vulnerabilities, yeah, that is hugely reduced. It will make, make me more powerful, but I actually don't want to be the Dr. No, because you do want to also create products. You also, well, I still want the company to thrive and sell things. But you'll have to then govern that you, with zero vulnerability, somebody has to then say, well, this is not acceptable. And in companies that, most companies I work for, that lies with the product security or the security officer. Business leaders are the ones who look at the different angles, both the benefits as well as what can go wrong. But it's still also a legal obligation. If it becomes, well, if ship holding becomes a legal obligation, yeah, then there's no other way than becoming Dr. No. Another context, I'm still very busy with the context, yes, I see. And that's extremely, because hackers are extremely agile, they can do whatever they want, and they can focus all their time on just breaking one thing, while the company and security has to defend all the aspects. So, as opposed to, that not just comes from hackers or adversaries, but also from security investigators, right? People who for you will have a look at the vulnerability, then say, do a CVD, right? Coordinated vulnerability disclosure, and say you have 60 days to close that. And if you don't, then I will go to a hacker conference, right? The DEF CON type of, Black Hat type of conference, and then it will be in the publicity. So that's, reputation-wise, often even more risky than an actual hacker, because it's much more publicity to that. Yeah, for that one, yeah, I do have to refer to this one. It's also, so it's the sun and excellent for getting a catchy phrase, when it's only a vulnerability, right? Where it says here, a security investigator found out how they can break it, but it's broad as if we are, the pacemakers are already broken. But that's how it goes with the reputation. And definitely with any kind of cybersecurity thing, a vulnerability, which is just a weakness, will be translated in the popular press as an incident, as things already happening. So risks we need to cater for. Okay, well, how then can we still in an agile way add some agility and DevOps to this whole waterfall process? Yeah, that's why, well, the regular stuff, right? Automating static code analysis in your CI/CD pipeline, automating SBOM, so software bill of material scanning by using products similar to the Sonatype product. Scanning it, building up a repository where it is, and then when there's a vulnerability, you go to the repository and say, oh, this vulnerability is in these and these and these and these products. But also easier to make it possible, because that's actually what Joe, well, not Joe himself, but Joe Biden's law wants, right? That you are quickly, as a customer, are quickly to able to see, well, there's Log4j in your product, and it's over, and it's these and these products, and you'll have to take an issue. Now, products are delivered, but customers don't know that they have Log4j, because their supplier hasn't told them. We need to start telling that, and an automated SBOM library will at least make that more, I guess, agile or faster to create those. And then, well, what I call DevSecOps security testing, we have a separate group of security testers in Bangalore who will take the product. They're not part of the businesses. They take the product and, like a hacker, look at it and see, security ninja, as we call them, but anyway, they look at it and see how they can break it. But it was beneficial to also have people with similar skills already in the pipeline who not just doing the automated testing, but already being semi-part of the product, but also still have some independence to be able to call out, because why do you want independence? Because you don't want a boss to say, yeah, that's all fine, this vulnerability, but for the moment, we are going to do something else, or we don't think it's that important. You want that independence, but they will quickly be able to do some security testing while the product is not really finished yet for the final testing. It reduces the time, because that's why business units don't want the full-time testing. It reduces the amount of time needed for the full testing. But you still need the independent testing. Yeah, that's just for the regulatory approval. You need to be able to show that you have a team which, not part of the business, has looked at it in an independent type of way. Again, self-organized teams, not self-approving teams. And this is the bulk. This is the bulk stew, which is a rubber dike. So when it's necessary to put up the dike, you have the agility to put them up only in the moments you need them, by floating it up, and then it will protect you from. Yeah, this is the Netherlands. So I forgot made some links about the biggest threats to the Netherlands, right? Which is. Well, when it comes up and the waves come, yeah, then it's the second. Thanks, thanks for that one. I'll remember. And then, yeah, so the agile way to add security to DevOps, yeah, it's the risk context or risk management is technically, yeah, the agility lubricant. This makes it possible for me to, well, not be Dr. No and place it in another way to still go on, but still have risks managed in a certain way. Of course, when there's safety consequences, which you could have in medical devices, yeah, then the risk tolerance is much lower. And then, yeah, this one, the bottom one, comes from Kevin Fu from the FDA, which was an interesting one, because what you do in risk management, right, you do look at the probability and you look at the impact and times each other. That's the actual risk, right? The probability times impact is the actual risk. But if you have cybersecurity incidents, yeah, what he states, and I think it's a good point, but it makes it even more complex, is an adversary, so a hacker, he will work 100% of his time to just work on this 1% of probability. Yeah, that does change the dynamics, and definitely also the metrics, in doing the risk calculation. And then security also requires agility. So teams come to me, you must be more agile. We want to have more flexibility. But I also want flexibility on their end. Because, and they complain, right? Because many of the teams are working with QMSs where requirements are set up, and then in the end they are tested if they are implemented as they are set up, et cetera, et cetera. But through hackers and through vulnerabilities, yeah, the requirements will change at any moment. So I'm actually moving, well, I'm not, but I'm just a messenger, but I'm messaging that the goalposts are moving and that they need to now not work on this feature, they now need to immediately start working on Log4j. That type of agility is what I then want from them. So it's not a one-way street, right? They want some agility from our side, but we also want them to work agile on the security issues which are found at any moment. What is scanned yesterday? Yeah, but we scanned it yesterday, yes, but today you could have a vulnerability which was not scannable yet yesterday because the vulnerability is found today, right? So you need to keep people on the bench. The businesses need to be aware then, or not, right? Or reduce the number of features you can put in. Which makes it, well, agile security, right? So one of the statements from the Agile Manifest is individuals and interactions over processes. But that does make everything negotiable. Right? They say they do want to, and if individual interactions, yeah, they do want to actually keep on buying and selling. Say, oh, but if we do this, if it's then fine, etc. Those type of things. Yeah, that makes it security. Yeah, you're often in the trenches of a constant negotiation and handling of, well, this is because also risk analysis and saying, oh, this is a huge risk. I must admit, this is I guess somehow off the record, even though it's on the channel. It's somehow subjective, or could be perceived as subjective. So they say, well, we don't see it like that. Hence, independent testing is useful, right? Because that sort of gives an authority if something is actually an issue. But with legal and privacy and regulators, yeah, that makes it a constant negotiation type of thing. Yeah, and with businesses, the tactics I use, yeah, or I guess I see them as agile, but that's indeed choice architecture, right? So if this one, if that one, the choice architecture being, well, if you do not want to do this, then you'll have to get sign-off at somewhere higher up in the food chain, up to the highest level, depending on the type of risk. And yeah, there is also some social engineering going up and down. They try to social engineer me by saying, well, if you don't do it, then we cannot deliver. And I do it the other way around, right? Ending up, and that is sort of also like phishing. Yeah, that's the other picture I could have used, but I didn't. It's hardball governance. At some point you will see, well, must be able to say, this is not acceptable, and you actually do need to do this in a different type of way. Which brings me, on 0 minutes, on the open issues as asked for. This is the last bit of the dike which made the South Sea into the IJsselmeer. Another big protection for the Netherlands. 1929, so the anniversary is coming up. But yes, agile quality management. I did say it was a wish list, and maybe it's a shot for the moon. But yeah, and agile change management. But also, yeah, and I think there was a hint this morning on how to do that. Change management for large populations, right? Was what I have many, many teams who work with. I could do experiments with one team, say, well, make it a bit looser, depending on the type of solution in the context. But before you know it, they all say, oh, well, we want what we want what the other team has. We also don't want to have to do the testing as, with the Security Center of Excellence, right, with the expert group, but we want to also only have the DevSecOps team, when I did an experiment to see to what extent that would work. Yeah, that makes it very complex to, well, I guess with a big wheelbarrow full of frogs, when they sort of all are in the wheelbarrow, and then I say one of them, well, you could go out, that they not all jump out and go different directions, which would make it hard governance necessary again. And that's my final on this one. Do I have a final? No. Any questions?